Hey everyone, Kevin here, and welcome back to my channel. So, someone in a recent comment gave me food for thought when he kind of reminded me that job descriptions for teachers are typically the same no matter what grade level, district, or state you work in, which made me realize how that's contributing to a few problems I've already brought up over the years, such as how there's no job growth for educators and that there's no tangible onboarding for them either, which sets them up for failure pretty early on. But I miss an important point when combining all of those things together. Namely, that the job description is not only the same in a general sense, but also the same for first year teachers versus ones with 30 plus years of experience. What education doesn't take into account anymore is that the legal or functional title in our contracts may be the same, but the expectations, support structure, and leadership responsibilities should reflect the teacher's level of experience. Yet it doesn't. And this does two vital things wrong for the profession. First, and most obviously, is that it reinforces the, well, common perception now that teachers do the same thing for decades on end and never improve themselves. Again, there's no job growth as a teacher, just you doing more things for no real change in pay. And I've said this before that teaching is a dead end job. You certainly gain experience, but there are no promotions in that sense, just more work. You can become a teacher on assignment, a department chair, do after school tutoring, or coach a sport, but that's just adding jobs onto what you do. It doesn't give you a promotion, especially considering how most of those are just stipends that don't even give you a rate commensurate with your hourly pay, which is why job descriptions don't change based on how much experience you have. They don't care about that since they can hire anybody as long as they're a warm body that has the right credentials. This is also why new teachers are often given the absolute worst of the worst students, too, because they aren't seen as something to invest in, since anyone they hire will theoretically give them the same experience. Come to think of it, that's probably also how they justify the lack of onboarding for fresh educators and why we have rising levels of them burning out in the first 2 years now rather than the old guidepost of 5 years. And even though it isn't necessarily a widespread problem, schools would much rather hire a first year teacher who costs virtually nothing than a veteran teacher who is way more expensive, yet doesn't give them any real difference in skills solely in a functional sense. And putting all that together, it's why most teachers don't go out of their way to take extension courses or attend conferences all that often to learn more either. They don't really need to from a practical standpoint because their job description will never change if they decide to move on to a different school or do something different. The only motivator to learn more is to move into a higher pay column, thus leading to all of that stagnation teachers not only feel, but which has become the norm for the profession as a whole. I realized I wasn't growing at all those last couple of years, but I just didn't have the effort to do anything about it. Frankly, we've robbed teachers of actually caring about their growth at this point for years on end, and that's why so many are leaving. But the other issue with job descriptions being the same no matter the years of experience, and arguably the more important problem, is that it ill defines what roles teachers should have as employees. In any job, you get some form of onboarding and are trained by someone more experienced than you. It prevents future errors and helps new workers grow and become good at their jobs. That's how any marginally successful business works. Yet that's not how teaching works. We are often forced to watch, I don't know, a 20-minute PowerPoint or simple meeting, given our keys and told to do the job those 20 years our senior are doing without any further guidance, which just does not work. A first year teacher is often very high energy and willing to do whatever it takes to succeed, but we don't support them in doing that because we rarely give them effective mentorship and supervision. They typically don't even know who to call for help or where to begin with fitting in at the school. And leaning on your department, who are also ludicrously busy, doesn't usually work either. It sets these new teachers up for failure because instead of realizing that their job description shouldn't be the same at all, we expect them to know all of the same fundamentals at the same level as veterans, like classroom management, lesson planning, and content development. But there's no credentialing program out there which adequately prepares teachers to do any of those things right out of the gate anyway. Hell, it's why we have student teaching in the first place. But that often isn't followed through on during the first couple of years of full time teaching in meaningful ways either. The 2 years of mentorship I was given to clear my credential were frankly a joke, and were too infrequent to really make the difference I needed. By the time those meetings actually came up every month, I had muddled through and figured things out on my own, which only increased my stress levels early on and made it hard to get into a groove. A job description for a young teacher should really have a learning curve built into it, but it doesn't. Instead of clearly stating that there will be a transitionary period where they will be given real guidance and tools to succeed, new teachers are just expected to perform as well as anyone else. And believe me, the sink or swim mentality is the worst one to have for new teachers, especially when it's with people who are literally educating the future generations of our society. And by extension, experienced teacher roles should be different too. They should gradually be moved into a leadership and mentorship position, with that being an actual promotion too, where they're resources for newer educators and where they take on and lead new campus initiatives instead of being dictated to by administrators who have no idea what they're doing. They should also be able to more effectively specialize and focus on specific aspects of the curriculum or things like classroom management. That way, fresh teachers would also know who are excellent resources for very specific things. And to add on top of that, seasoned teachers should also have a hand in designing, developing, and evaluating school and district wide curriculum and data. Way too often, those are created in a vacuum with people who've never been teachers at all and thus have no idea what they're even talking about. To my overall point, though, yes, new and veteran teachers have the same core duties like creating a safe and conducive learning environment, but they will have different approaches to the job because the new ones haven't learned what they really need to know yet. While everyone still expects them to do the same job with equal results as the one that's been doing it for over 30 years. And as you can imagine, that's a really unrealistic expectation. I mean, I get that copying and pasting the same job description is easier for your HR people, but it presents a distorted image that everyone is doing the exact same thing in the exact same way, and it actually verifies what we all have been saying repeatedly for years. There's no job growth in education, and that's actively harming the system and making educators even more apathetic than they already were. Changing this and actually creating a system where there are different roles within teaching would do wonders for improving morale, public perception, and would encourage better investment in our newer teachers. Hell, it might even encourage more to work harder to get those promotions and help us retain quality educators once again, who are instead choosing other careers after seeing how they will never move from doing the same thing for decades. Because that's just not natural for anyone, is it? We want to grow, we want to learn and be better than what we are, but teaching just doesn't provide that anymore. And people have burned out and are leaving in droves because of it. Well, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please consider liking and subscribing to help out the channel, because every little bit does help, and I am very appreciative. But for now, I've been Kevin, and I will see you in the next video.